think sometimes it can be confusing walking the walk as a Christian, that we may be growing and changing, but we aren't pulling ourselves up to meet God. Sometimes we may feel like we have to make ourselves good enough, but God meets us where we are. God is super holy, but he remembers that we're a created creature. When he looks at us, he looks at the finished work of Christ. At the same time, it helps us grow in areas where we're sinful and incomplete. There's a comedian, and he said, I don't have these big gifts. I don't sing or dance. I'm not a great orator or intellect. There's only one talent I have, and that's being weird. I'm like, amen, I relate to that. I think the last thing on Apostle Matthew's, formerly known as Levi's, mind was religion when Jesus walked up to him at work in a tax collector's booth. It's a good thing because Jesus wasn't interested in giving him religion, but a connection with God. Even though he wasn't living a godly lifestyle, God saw his heart and where he truly was. Matt was Jewish. He grew up in synagogue, church when he was younger. He knew about God, but at a certain point, he walked away. I don't know what caused Matthew to walk away. Maybe he was searching for something. Maybe he felt religion was too restrictive and he wanted to follow certain lusts and desires and partake of them. Maybe he wanted to be rich and have the nice things he saw others have and chased money. He was living the fast life, making money, hanging out with prostitutes and other sinners. If he lived today, he'd probably wear designer clothes, be well-dressed, wear a Rolex, have a convertible car, maybe a sports car. His people considered him a traitor, helping the Roman Empire that was oppressing the Jews by collecting their taxes. Not only did Matthew walk away from his Jewish heritage, but his Samaritan friends too. Jesus called Matthew while he was working in a tax collector's booth. After work, Jesus went with him to his house where he reclined or hung out and met his friends. There were a lot of people at Matthew's house. His friends were sinners, not living an upright lifestyle, not godly church people. Matthew was outgoing and liked to be around a lot of people. He hosted not necessarily a lot of parties, but a lot of his friends came to hang out with him at his house. There's a good chance that Matthew was hedonistic, that is, living only for pleasure and living only for himself. Matthew was in his early 20s when Jesus called him. I'm sure before Jesus came to him, he and his friends sat around sipping wine and philosophized about God and life and people. Though he might have talked about religion before Jesus came, he probably made jokes with his friends, but probably not the kind you'd say in polite company. He probably was not afraid to talk about sex. Matthew was an intelligent, well-educated, and thoughtful guy. Not only could he read and write, which would have been required for his job as a tax collector, but he had a grasp of complex concepts and ideas. Look at the book of Matthew. It's not just a few pages, it's many pages. A book covering a range of things. He went deep. Compared to the Gospel of Peter, which is the book of Mark, it went in much more depth about the things that Jesus talked about and did. Mark was a scribe. It cost a lot of money to read and write back then. You had to go to a full-fledged school. It was expensive, like going to art school. But Apostle Peter was a simple fisherman, not educated. He dictated the Gospel of Mark and let Mark take credit. His Gospel is more simplistic. You look at the research in the book of Matthew, it's almost like a paper for school. He pulls in prophecies about the Messiah and how Jesus fulfilled them, like Bethlehem being the birthplace of the Messiah. The Messiah riding in on a donkey into Jerusalem, and how Jesus did that. The Messiah would be from the line of King David. He traced Jesus' lineage all the way back to Adam. The ways that Matthew talked about Jesus fulfilling prophecy. The book of Matthew talked about some tough subjects. Matthew didn't shy away from topics that were really hard. People were in denial about Christ. Matthew saw these things and believed God is able to handle doubts and fears. And even Matthew, who was in a sinful lifestyle, was still open to God. We know that because he followed Jesus when he called. When we're in denial, we tend to resist those who challenge our comfort zones, find excuses to not accept what others say, no matter what they do or say, become cynical, and justify self. Jesus said those in the truth would be able to listen to him. Matt listened and let it take him where it did. He became one of the apostles of Christ. Apostles and men of the Bible were real men and women, regular Joes. These aren't just stories about God. The Bible's full of their testimony. Like when a real crime happens, people give their testimony of what happened to the police. The gospel writers shared their own growth as they shared about Jesus and God. Paul shared about ambition and what the truly important things in life were. Peter about people-pleasing and following Jesus when things got tough. And Matthew experienced a lot of brokenness in himself and the world. It must have hit Matthew hard when Jesus talked about materialism because of the lifestyle he had lived before he came to Jesus, because he included it in his book.
Where's he at?
You have one old message. Sunday, 9:07 a.m.